ये नहीं करना फिर इसको में पासवर्ड लिंक में आपको जरूरत नहीं है। म्यूट कर दें अपने को? नहीं हमने म्यूट कर, वीडियो म्यूटेड है। इसमें कुछ आ नहीं रहा। हाँ आ रहा है, अभी आएगा। अभी कुछ क्लिक हुआ है, कुछ पिक्चर आया। हाँ वो शुरू तो होने दो 4 बजे, तो 4:01 तो हो गया।
Hello.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, I can hear.
Yes, Aftab, we can hear you. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to people who have joined us today for this webinar from different parts of the globe. My name is Aftab Alam. I'm heading BD at COE International. Before we get started, I would like to quickly brief you who we are before I introduce our speaker for the day. COE International is one of the very few education sector specific certification bodies on the globe.
Please put your camera on.
COE is accredited by NABCB, Government of India. The company was set up with the core purpose to empower the education sector across all levels. We conduct assessments, audits, and provide certification services to all the key segments of the education sector, right from school education to higher education, learning and development, and training organizations. We assess, evaluate, inspect, and certify the process, systems, and persons to ensure that their acceptability and credibility in the education and other sectors remain consistently high. We are the first ones to introduce ISO 21001 in this sector, and we are glad that we choose to remain an education sector specific certification body. We have our presence in India, UAE, Middle East, Europe, and UK. And I would also like to share that recently during the lockdown period, we have trained more than 300 auditors and implementers on ISO 21001 from 10 different countries. Now, without taking more time, let me introduce our speaker, Mrs. Aarti Khosla, founder and CEO, COE International, to take over and start the proceedings. She has been associated with more than 500 educational organizations across the world for the last 23 years, and she has trained more than 5,000 education leaders on effective educational management systems across schools, higher educations, L&D, training institutes, and educational organizations. She has been representing India at ISO Technical Committee TC232 as a technical expert of educational management systems. She is an expert in the National Education and Skill Development Service Sectional Committee Bureau of Indian Standards. She has participated in the development of various accreditation standards at the national and international level, and she has been an advisor to a large number of educational organizations and has also worked with the ministries for the government of India for institutionalizing their processes.
ये हमारा खराब है
May I now request Mrs.
हैं?
Aarti Khosla to please take it over. Over
इसका
to you, ma'am.
हटा दें
Yeah, thank you so much, Aarti. Thank you. May I please request everyone to put your mics on? Aftab, I think you can mute the participants.
Yeah.
All right. So a very good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today. And I'm very happy. Yeah, there is still some disturbance. Just a minute, please.
You can unmute yourself.
Right. Yeah, thank you so much. And thanks to all of you for joining us today. On a working day, you've been able to spare an hour and join us for this webinar. And I'm very glad that we have participants from various elite organizations today. To name a few, we have the participants from the HDFC Bank, the L&D vertical. We have people from CRPF, IOCL, BPRND, IAF in Indian Air Force, and we also have people from LINAC, Ministry of Agriculture. So it's a pleasure to have you all with us. Today, we specifically decided to conduct this webinar only for the L&D sector. Although the standard that I'm going to talk about today is a sector-specific standard, which is applicable to all kinds of educational organizations. But for the L&D sector, we somehow felt in the last 6 months that the awareness needs to be built up. In fact, a lot of people are not even aware of this standard. So it was very important to conduct this kind of a webinar and discuss it with you all. ISO 21001 is a sector-specific standalone management system standard, and any training organization can adopt this. We all know that different ISO standards, like the ones for quality, environment, information security, energy management, business sustainability, and so on, they are being used across the world for the last more than 7 decades. And ISO is the largest body in the world that develops and maintains these standards. In the education sector, the introduction of a management system standard in the year 2018 has certainly made our lives better and has given more prominence to the education sector. It has given more confidence to the stakeholders, whether the learners, the educators, the trainers, government organizations, employers, or the end users in the whole system. If they are dealing with a certified organization, they are definitely feeling more confident about these services. Adopting any standard supports the decision makers so that they are able to take better decisions, and they are able to create better policies and make their organizations more successful and socially responsible. Today, this webinar that we are conducting, let me just share my screen with you all. Give me just 1 minute. So today we are trying to conduct this webinar with a little bit different kind of an approach. I'm sure after I have shared everything about the standard, you would be interested in asking a lot of questions. So we will have almost around 15 minutes today after the webinar, where, no, not after the webinar, after I finish speaking. So we will have around 15 minutes for the question answer session. So whatever questions you have, whatever queries are there in your mind, please feel free to take them up. The main objective is to make you aware about this such an important standard, which any learning and development organization can implement and can get huge benefits out of it. So please feel free, everyone. After I finish, you can take up all your queries. So I'm going to discuss about the standard, its scope, its principles, and broadly, I will touch upon the requirements. So what an L&D will have to do to ensure that you complete your journey till the certification and you get the maximum advantage out of the implementation of this particular standard. So we all understand that all the educational organizations, whether it's a school, a college, a university, a training institution, a vocational institution, it's very critical and it's very, very important that they continuously evaluate the degree to which they are meeting the requirements of all the learners. Now, in the case of L&D, it's of course the trainees. So whether you are able to meet the needs of all your trainees, as well as all the interested parties, whether your end users, the stakeholders, management, the business department, operations, to whom you are serving. And you need to continuously go on upgrading your ability to meet their requirements. So the beneficiaries of this standard, the first important beneficiary is, of course, the educational organization itself, the L&D organization. Then, of course, the trainees, the learners worldwide, and all the interested parties. So the standard is for all of them. And it's focusing specifically on the interaction between an educational organization, its trainee, and the customer to whom the organization is serving, right? So it's very important that we understand how this standard is going to aid in ensuring excellence in our services. And how this can help L&D is that you will be able to ensure that all your training services, they meet the learners and the stakeholders' needs. I think I've been repeating this since the time I've started, because this is the key focus area, meeting the needs of your stakeholders, achieving consistency in your training services year on year, so that continuously you deliver the same quality, the same satisfaction. And with that, you will be able to continuously enhance the satisfaction of all your trainees. This is one standard which has a direct impact on the achievement of the Sustainability Development Goal number 4, number 10, and number 11. If you visit the ISO website, you can see this kind of a mapping with the Sustainability Development Goals. So ISO 21001 is the first international management system standard for the educational organizations. It's not that in the past, ISO never had standards in the education sector, but specifically a management system standard, which is a standalone standard and which can be implemented by anybody right from an early childhood school to a university and a training organization. I think this has happened for the first time. So this was prepared by a committee called PC 288 at ISO, and now that was a project committee, and now there's a technical committee called TC 232 which is taking care of it. And as Aftab, when he was introducing me, he mentioned that I participated and I represented the country there at TC 232, which was definitely an honor for me to do this. And so I feel it becomes a responsibility on our part to create an awareness and promote the standard. It can be implemented along with any other standard also. So if you're already an ISO 9001 certified organization, an ISO 14001, 27001, whichever management system you adopted, you can, this system can coexist. So this also follows the high level structure, which is followed by all the other ISO standards. So any organization that's using a curriculum for developing the competence of the learners, irrespective of the type and size of the organization. So when I'm saying L&D, it can be a standalone and independent training organization. It can be an L&D department within a big corporate organization, or it can be an organization that is providing the learning and development services to various other independent organizations. So I still remember we conducted 2 days, a very comprehensive program for Bureau of Police Research and Development here in Delhi, where all the BPR&D units, unit heads were there, the training heads were there. It was a marvelous program in the kind of interactions we happened and the value that they saw in implementing the standard. That gave us a kick, you know. And then again, very recently, we have certified the L&D unit of a bank, Islamic bank in Dubai. And again, the benefits that the QA division could derive out of the standard and the way all the employees of through the HR division, the way they've been benefited. I think that gives us more encouragement to promote it further. So as I've already said, this is applicable to all the learning and development organizations. Now, what are the main objectives of L&D? Why at all do we have the L&D sector? I think the first important point we all understand, we want to meet the learning and development needs of all the professionals. When I say professionals, it could be your own employees. It could be the employees or the professionals who are working with the other organizations. Another important objective is that we want to ensure their capacity building. We want to align our L&D strategies with the mission and vision of our own organization or the other organizations, of course, from where these trainees are coming. We need to ensure sustainable practices and a long-term success for the organization. Definitely, we want each and every program that we are offering to be an effective program, give the desired outcomes, and we also want to maintain efficiency so that we are able to deliver the right kind of results within the least possible time. And finally, we want to enhance the learning and development of the entire corporate workforce. That's the main goal. Now, in order to achieve this goal, there are a lot of challenges that we come across. And I'm sure you will all agree with me on those challenges. And once I have shared those challenges and once I've discussed how ISO 21001 standard can help you overcome those challenges, please let me know in case you have something else to say or you feel there's something that I have missed out. Also, before I go ahead, I would like to request everyone, you have the chat box there in Zoom. Please make use of the chat box. Whatever questions you have or any concerns you have, feel free to put them up there. There are people who have joined us on YouTube also. So a very warm welcome to all the viewers on the YouTube. And in case, again, you all have queries, we have a team who's taking care of your concerns on YouTube, and we will be referring to all of that. And we would like to address each and every concern and each and every question. The first and the foremost challenge, expectations of the interested parties keep rising, whether it's the employees or if it is the management or the main end user, the operations department, the business department. I think their expectations are ever increasing. So L&D has to cope up with that. You have to perform to that. Maintaining quality of your training that you're designing to increase individual and organizational productivity. So maintaining quality of your trainings, I think that's a challenge. So you have to maintain it consistently. You don't give training only, you don't give quality only once and then you step back. It doesn't happen like that. So consistently you have to go on delivering quality in all your training services. The third big challenge is, why we conduct trainings is because we want to equip our people so that they can cope up with any kind of a change that's happening. The demands for the service, today they are different, tomorrow they can be different. I think we are all experiencing in the current scenario what our customers were expecting from us earlier. I think it has there is a huge shift. So whether our people, our task force, are they capable enough to address those challenges? So we need to equip them, right? We need to give them those right kind of tools. The fourth important challenge, what I feel is, we are not very sure how to implement standardized practices in the training organizations. Again, consistency. So it keeps changing. People change and the practices change. Systems change. And whatever we are delivering today, probably tomorrow we will not be able to deliver that. So that consistency needs to be maintained. For that, you need to have standardized practices. Another important element is we identify the training needs. Now, based on those training needs, whatever training plans we make, whatever trainings we decide to take up, and the content that we prepare, and the outcomes that we intend to give, they are not mapped. There is a gap in that. So that mapping is very, very important for a training institute. The fifth important challenge is that all our trainers, whether our in-house faculty or we take people from outside, how competent they are. It's very pertinent that we continuously evaluate that. and we go on upgrading their training skills. They also need to be, their capacity building is equally important. A regular updation of the course content in line with the changing requirements. The requirements of your stakeholders keep changing, the legal requirements keep changing, and we have to regularly go on updating all our training material in line with those changing requirements. I think that's a very big challenge, to understand the needs and to cope up with those needs in our content. The effectiveness of all our trainings, how effective they are. Are we able to give the desired outcomes? Whatever skills we were trying to build, or knowledge or experience that we were trying to give to our trainees, have our trainings been effective enough to give those results? I think that evaluation is a challenge. We don't adopt a risk-based approach in the training, the ecosystem. I think the L&D organizations need to focus more on a risk-based approach. What can go wrong? What kind of uncertainties can come? And what can be the impact of those uncertainties? And what kind of controls do I put in place so that I can deal with those uncertainties? So this complete shift has to be there in our approach. There are a lot of changes in the technology. I think we all know that. In fact, in the last 10 years, probably the technology has undergone a change to an extent of 140%. So when the technology is changing so frequently, are we as the L&D sector able to cope up with those changes? Are we able to update ourselves? I think that's a very big challenge. Another challenge is, in our organizations, through our trainees, we need to build up an environment, a culture where we can value the diversity and can give growth opportunities to all the people through, again, our training services. So that's a challenge. Another challenge, providing the adequate training facilities. Now, whether you talk about the infrastructure or the overall environment that you're giving, or the other, whatever kind of facilities are there. So how to ensure that the facilities that we are providing, they are adequate, they are appropriate to meet the needs of the learners. Both these areas need to be taken care of. And then a lot of data we deal with. How do we maintain confidentiality of that data? We all know that data security has become a major concern now. So how do the L&D sector ensure that we are able to maintain all that confidentiality? So there are 12. Now I come to the 13th one, which I feel is a very important challenge, and we need to overcome that challenge. And that challenge is that a regular monitoring and evaluation of our whole training management system, that's missing. We don't know that it's very important to critically evaluate ourselves, to carry out a self-assessment, to carry out an internal audit of our system, and to know where we stand, what the gaps are. I think a very important area is an evidence-based decision-making. That's also a principle of the standard. I'll be talking about that as well. So what kind of data we collect, how do we analyze that data, and how do we use the data analysis for the improvement of our system? I think that particular aspect is a little bit missing in the L&D sector. Okay, now I open to you all. Other than these 13, I would welcome you all if you would like to unmute yourself and speak. Let's make it interactive. Let's not make it a lecture method. So would somebody like to share? Is there anything that here I have missed out with it, which L&D is already facing? I can stop sharing and I will reshare. Do we have something in the chat box? Yes, please.
Good afternoon, Aarti. I'm Sudhir Maheshwari. And one of the challenge what I identify in the learning and development areas is the identification of the right training need, which I am finding is the missing. And in line with that identification of training need, when they identify the training need, they don't identify how they will going to monitor the effectiveness, when and how. So actually what I have observed in the industry with my experience, it's a effectiveness monitoring parameter, they don't determine when they identify training need. So one is the identifying the correct training need. Second is identification of the defining the methodology. one more thing, if you permit, I will speak, or I will speak later otherwise.
Yeah, Sudhir ji, I think I've covered when I said that mapping of the training needs, your training plans, and your evaluation of effectiveness and measuring the outcomes. That mapping is missing. I think I covered that there. But you've touched upon a very pertinent point. Sudhir ji, would you like to please introduce yourself?
Madam, I am a consultant with 40 years of experience.
Okay.
And I call myself as a success partner. And we are in all the management systems. I am working on ISO 9000 since 92.
Right, Sudhir ji. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that. And I welcome you to this. And then we have another point from Urvija Bajpayee also, where we are talking about training effectiveness measurement is a challenge. Yes. So how to measure whether our trainings are effective or not? Ms. Urvija, would you like to unmute yourself? We would like to know a little bit about your background so that I can address it very specifically. Ms. Bajpayee, are you there? Okay, so we'll go ahead. Yeah, but Ms. Bajpayee, I think this is a very relevant point. Okay, she's written that
Hello.
With the connection.
Hi,
so,
ma'am.
Yeah,
Vivek
so
this side.
Sorry?
Vivek this side, ma'am.
Yeah, please, Vivek ji.
Yeah. I worked for Aditya Birla Sandai for 15 days. Now I am running my business
Okay.
and consultants also.
So what
I think there is.
what is the area that I have not covered?
For the effectiveness of a training, I think practical training is must include, and I think that it is missing in all training programs.
The skill-based training. The skill-based training. I think that's what you're trying to say. So whenever we are conducting the trainings for our own employees or for the professionals from the other organizations, it's very important that these trainings are to a great extent very practically delivered. Can I please request everyone to again mute yourselves? Thank you so much. And thank you so much for sharing all the participants who have shared their
Artima?
Yes, Dr. Sood.
Urvija can listen to you, and we have another question there in the chat box. Where
can I take that up later, Dr. Sood? Can I take that up later?
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much. So these are the challenges, I think, which has covered almost everything which you are also trying to say. And now let me tell you the answer to it is, if you want to overcome all these challenges and you want to improve the effectiveness of your systems, it's the standardization. So standardization through ISO 21001, if you want to cater to the needs of your stakeholders and ensure that you have systems in all the areas of L&D without any exception. So that's an answer. And now what is ISO 21001? What kind of requirements it has? So today in this webinar, I would like to just quickly touch upon those requirements, and in a detailed manner, we can do it later also. In fact, we are planning some other activities for the L&D. I'll be sharing about that as well. So the overall objective of this whole standard is to link your mission and vision to give the desired results through a collaboration of your culture, your principles, your policy, and your objectives. So your practices are directly linked with your mission and vision. Whatever you're trying to achieve, that is what your implementation says. So there is no gap between what you practice and what you preach. There is a direct linkage between your strategic direction. So I come to the benefits. You will be able to better align your objectives and the activities with policies, as I've already said. You will be able to enhance your social responsibility because you're going to deliver quality trainings. You can ensure a personalized learning and effective response to all learners, to all trainees, because with the standard, you will be forced, rather, I should say, you will be motivated to look at the individual needs of your trainees and conduct your training in the way so that you can cater to every individual's needs. And you will be able to ensure consistent processes and evaluation tools. So ultimately, the credibility of your organization increases, You will be known across the world. Your stakeholders value you more. You will be able to demonstrate effective training management practices. And there'll be no doubt on your systems, on the overall effectiveness of your systems and your training courses. You will be able to build a culture towards the organizational improvement, and everybody is thinking and aligning their strategies towards improvement. Your interested parties participate more, whether it's the learner, it's the trainer, or the content developer, or it's the business unit. Everybody is working together because everybody's focus is to deliver a very, very comprehensive and an effective training program. And ultimately, you will certainly be able to stimulate excellence and innovation in the entire system. Now, there are total 11 principles. These are not the requirements, but the principles based on which the whole standard has been framed. Number one being focus on the learners and other beneficiaries, where everybody's focus is to ensure that the learner is satisfied, the trainee is satisfied, and he gets the maximum benefit out of all the training programs. The second important principle is visionary leadership, where the leader is able to bring everybody on the same page and they are all able to connect with the vision and mission of the organization. There is a strategic direction that everybody is following and everybody is talking the same language. That is what a visionary leader can do. Engagement of people. Your people, instead of just doing their work every day, they are looking more at the outcome-based approach. They are all aligned. So more engagement you will be able to ensure. You will be able to ensure a process approach. So every activity that's undertaken, right from identification of the training need to training planning, to content development, conduct of the training, evaluation of the training, certifying the trainee, the whole process is looked at from the process approach. You will be forced to think, what is my input? What is my desired output? How do I control my process? How do I make it measurable? How do I define my objectives? What are the risks that are involved in my process? How do I continuously improve my process? So, your outlook changes. The way you look at things, it completely changes. You will be on a journey towards improvement. So your ultimate aim is to improve your learning services. You will be following an evidence-based decision-making approach. I think that's the key here. Because unless you collect the required kind of data, it's very difficult to give the required kind of results. You don't know where you are. So it's very, very critical that we have the evidence-based decision-making. Somebody was asking me, the other day there was the head of one of the training institutes. He was getting retired. So I asked him, I said, sir, you've been serving the training sector for the last almost 45 years. What is the key to your success? He said, good decisions. I said, sir, that's very nice, but how did you start taking good decisions? He said, I learned from the bad decisions. And then I said, so how did you learn from your bad decisions? He said, because I was always keen on looking at the facts and the evidences. Unless you develop that kind of an approach, your decisions would be uncertain. You cannot rely 100% on your decisions. Definitely, even after evidence-based decision-making, that element of a little bit of uncertainty stays there. But still, I think you develop a huge level of confidence on your decision-making. The seventh principle says you need to build good relationships with everyone, with your stakeholders. That includes your learners, your vendors, the training service providers, the government, the compliance bodies, authorities, I think everybody. The eighth principle is talking about social responsibility. So as an organization, if before ISO 21001, I have been doing a lot of things, but I have not been focusing on social responsibility in a structured manner, the standard gives me that platform where I can make my organization socially responsible. My whole L&D division becomes socially responsible division. And I'm also ensuring number 9, accessibility and equity. Even the learners with special needs, there is a possibility. Most of the organizations, you have employees with special needs. So how do you take care of that? It can be any kind of, it can be a physical special need. It can be an intellectual special ability. It can be anything. So you are more focused to ensure that every special learner is also getting adequate attention. The 10th principle talks about ethical conduct. So ethical conduct means right from the entry of the learner or your trainee to the exit of the trainee, the entire process, we are maintaining ethical conduct in the whole training business. And the last principle is about data security and protection. I think this particular principle is giving a lot of guidance on how you can ensure data security so that your learners develop a great sense of confidence. All the stakeholders develop a great sense of confidence and they feel very free when they're sharing their data with you. They know that the data is safe. So these are the principles, and based on these principles, the standard has been developed. There are total 10 clauses in the standard. When I say clauses, I'm referring to the requirements. So all the ISO people here in this program, I think they know what the clauses are. The non-ISO people, so the clauses are the requirements. These are the things that you will have to do, and they are already specified in the standard. The standard is also giving you some guidance. There are total 7 annexures that have been given, and these annexures are giving you adequate guidance on how you classify your interested parties, how should you communicate with interested parties, what should be the level of participation of the interested parties in all your decision-making processes, and how you can monitor and measure your processes on a day-to-day basis and map the ISO 21001 with any other standard in the whole world, whether it's a regional standard, a national standard, an international standard. So, and also the health and safety considerations. The standard adopts the PDCA approach. I think everybody is aware of that: plan, do, check, and act. I would not like to go into the details of that. Let's quickly talk about clause number 4. So I have another 10 minutes where I will finish about the clauses and then I will leave it to your questions. So this particular clause is asking the L&D to identify their issues. What are their internal issues, external issues? What are your positive and the negative issues? How do you align your strategic direction with these issues? What's your vision and your mission? Who are your interested parties and what are their needs? What is the scope? What are the processes that you're defining? So aligning the whole management system is what clause number 4. Clause number 5 is talking about the visionary leadership, where the leaders have to take the accountability, and the ISO 21001 requirements are integrated with your business processes. So whatever your learning and development processes are, the ISO 21001 implementation doesn't stay as a standalone system. It becomes a part of your business system. It becomes a way of life. It becomes a way of looking at things. It becomes your continual improvement. That is what the visionary leader will have to ensure. A visionary leader will very clearly define everybody's roles, accountabilities, so that there are no overlaps and the people get ample time to upgrade their skills. They are not busy doing the unproductive activities. Everybody's roles is clearly defined. And the policy is determined by the leader, the EOMS policy. Clause 6 is talking about the risk-based thinking, where you will identify the risks and opportunities that are involved in the L&D system. The whole ecosystem, what are the objectives that you're trying to achieve? How would you ensure that the measurable objectives at all the levels they are established and everybody is looking at the continuous achievement of those objectives, and through objectives, you're continually improving your system. Whenever you're making changes, how do you ensure that the system's integrity is maintained? So a very robust change management system is what clause 6 is talking about. Clause 7 is talking about all the resource requirements, whether it's your infrastructure or it's your human resources or the external providers. So everything has to be very well defined and structured in terms of knowing the needs of not only your staff and volunteers and interns, but also the external providers. All the people who are working with the organization, they need to be given an environment where they feel the physical safety as well as they get the psychosocial safety. Your own staff, your own trainers, even the non-training staff, everybody is able to maintain the work-family balance. Everybody is working under an environment which is stress-free, which values harmony, and which gives them satisfaction. And they are rewarded for all the good things that they're doing. They're recognized. So that is what this particular clause is talking about. Also, another important requirement is managing the knowledge of the organization. So how do you make sure that when all your, I generally use this term, your senior most people, the most experienced task force of your organization, when they would not be there in the organization, how do you make sure that all the new generations, they are capable enough to manage the way the things were being managed earlier? So where is that experience sharing happening? Where is that knowledge sharing happening? Do you have some kind of a mechanism wherein this knowledge is transferred to the next generations? So this is what is the requirement of the ISO standard. And being an education standard, this requirement becomes very, very important here for this particular sector. And a regular training, mentoring of your teams, of your internal and the external teams, all the staff who's working with the organization. How do you maintain your communication practices? Who all are involved? How do you communicate? Why do you communicate? What is the purpose? What actually do you want to achieve through your communication processes? So a very robust communication mechanism is put in place for the L&D division. Clause 8 is typically talking about your core business, your training. So how do you ensure that the learning outcomes of each and every training program that you're offering is well connected with the input? So a connection between your input and the output so that you achieve the desired outcomes. Linkages to the workplace opportunities. Maybe the people who are being trained by you, they get better opportunities to for their own professional growth. You need to understand the current and the future needs of the learners and the market sentiments, the compliances, keeping in mind all that, you are developing the entire training content. The design and development of your training, the entire programs, the structures, how do you keep in mind what would be the prerequisites? What will be the characteristics of the learners that I need to consider? What kind of training methods or the pedagogy that I need to implement to be able to transact all the knowledge that I'm trying to do? How would I measure the learning outcomes? And how do I take care of the opportunities of my assessments based on which I'm certifying the training, right? It's very, very important that you select your external providers very carefully, especially when it comes to teaching and training. All the people who are being empaneled by you, who are coming in, the agencies with whom you have the tie-up and they are providing the training to your learners, your employees, how do you evaluate their performance? That's an important criteria here. When somebody is enrolling into a course, say for example, you're designing a training program for your own employees, you would have definitely identified the individual training needs of your people based on which you planned the course. But what kind of skills are you going to build up? What extra is your employee going to deliver after he undergoes this program? How would you assess that learning? So a very clear mapping with your design and your learning outcomes through a robust assessment mechanism is what is needed in clause number 8. You have to regularly monitor the progress of your trainees, right? Clause number 9 is talking about evaluation of the whole system. And evaluation can be done through the data that's dependent on the feedback of your trainees, feedback of the trainers, and feedback of the whole community. If your trainees are going to give their services to an operations department or a business function or some other organizations, maybe on a regular basis, you need to take their feedback so that you can continuously go on meeting the requirements of those stakeholders. How well do you handle the complaints and appeals in case they have any issue? How well you cater to that? And you are very proactively dealing with all the concerns that your trainees have. Conducting a regular internal audit. So here, just like all the other ISO standards, conducting the internal audit and a management review meeting for a regular review of your system is a mandatory requirement. So based on the feedback, you're going to do that. And based on the internal audit, you're going to discuss all those issues with the management. And ultimately, whatever areas you identify for improvement, those are your opportunities. And how do you take care of those opportunities? By ensuring that there is a continuous improvement that's happening, by ensuring that this improvement is long lasting, and you are able to innovate with your training practices. This is what is the requirement of this clause. So since I have not been able to talk in a detailed manner, I've just tried to give you an overview of what this standard is all about. So ultimately, if you want to know how continual improvement can be ensured by using this standard, of course, through a regular data analysis evaluation, a continuous monitoring of your system, a regular internal audit, taking corrective actions, and regular reviews. So please remember, quality not achieved is the quality denied to the trainee, to the person for whom we are all here. There are three important terms. Most of you must be aware. I can quickly touch this upon. Certification. We are a third party when we conduct an audit and we provide the certification to the client. That's certification. Now, the whole chain, there is a lot of validation involved in the whole chain. To be a authentic certification body and to give you an effective certificate, I need to be accredited. So COA is accredited by NABCB, that's the National Accreditation Board for Certification Bodies, Quality Council of India. And we all know that NABCB in turn is being audited by the IEF. So it's a complete chain of validation process. So without an accreditation, no certification can give you that confidence and the guarantee that your systems have been evaluated by competent persons. So accreditation gives the confidence that the certification body is competent to deliver the certification services. That's it. So I can quickly let you know, these are some of the upcoming things for the L&D sector. We are planning an international panel discussion, especially for the L&D sector on 6th October. Please, everybody, you can mark your calendars. We will share the timings and everything with you later. Those who are interested, you can reach out to us. You can let us know that you would like to be a part of it. So we will have people from different countries who are going to participate in this panel discussion and how training can be made more robust. We have a special internal auditor program for the L&D sector, which we will be starting from 26th October onwards. It's a 16 hours program, followed by an assessment and a certification, of course. And we are also coming up with a lead auditor course for ISO 21001. So everywhere you'll see ISO 21001 because that's only what we do. We don't do any other ISO certifications. We don't do any other industry. For us, education is a passion. So right from the school education to university, colleges, L&D, vocational, whatever you call it, it's a passion for us. We want to make sure that this world becomes a better place tomorrow. And with the introduction of the new education policy, we are very sure that at least this country is going to be a much better place in the near future. And we will have more confidence in our education system, complete education system, right from the school level to the university level. And training institutes play a major role. I think there is a huge need to recognize the role that the training institutes, that the L&D play. Right. So this is can I request you to mute yourselves, please, so that we can take questions. We would like to take up your questions, and we still have got 10 minutes to go. So please feel free, whatever comes to your mind, or if there is somebody, I'm sure today here in this webinar, we have got a few organizations who are already implementing the ISO 21001 standard. So very happy to know. In fact, today itself, I got to know that there are 2 PSUs who are in the process of implementing the ISO 21001 standard. So if somebody wants to share something, please feel free. We have people from CRPF also. You have already undergone a training in ISO 21001. Please, you can take up all your questions, anything.
Ma'am, there's a question in the chat box by Mr. Maheshwari. He wants to know what percentage of the budget should one allocate for L&D?
Okay, so if I talk about the corporates, it's a focus area for most of the corporates. It's a focus area for all the government organizations also. In fact, yesterday I was speaking to somebody at DOPT and I understood that government is putting in a huge focus on the training and development of the government officials. So percentage of budget, it's very difficult to determine because it would vary from an organization to organization. It would also vary on dependent on several other factors. But yes, the budget allocation has to be there. I think as an auditor, this is what I can say. If I don't see a budget allocated for L&D in your whole budget estimation, it gives a very clear indication that you are not interested in the continuous development of your task force. So when you're planning the trainings, it gives a lot of confidence to your own people that you are an organization that is investing in the growth of their own employees. I hope, Mr. Maheshwari, I've been able to answer you.
Madam, my question was when we speak about the percentage, I want to know what is the percentage of the people cost of the people with respect to cost of training. Means what is the budget for the total cost of the people?
So that's what I'm saying, Mr. Maheshwari. There is no defined rule on that.
No, I'm not talking. What is the practice? I want to know. I want to know the practice. I don't want the rule.
I have audited more than 100 L&D organizations, and I have seen a different practice in all those 100. In fact, there are a lot of international organizations also who are investing into the training and development. But then again, there are no benchmarks as such.
Okay.
Regarding the budget to be allocated for this. There is no benchmark that I am aware of, at least.
Okay.
So there are organizations who are measuring the productivity of their employees, and based on the productivity, they are allocating a budget. At the same time, there are a lot of other organizations where no productivity measurement is also happening. So then how do you correlate your budget allocation with the productivity? It's a challenge. We have, there is a comment in the chat box from Mr. Mohsin, where he says there is an international benchmark related to the percentage of budget to be allocated by CIPD. Okay, so if there is something, would you like to share that with us, Mr. Mohsin? Would you like to enlighten everybody on that?
Good afternoon to all of you. Actually, the benchmark currently, I don't remember the percentage. It depends on the ROI and the knowledge transfer level of the organization that they want to proceed, which is based on the strategic, competency, build up. So I just can't remember, but I saw that there is a benchmark in CIPD related to the allocation of budget for any training.
Okay.
It is 2% or 1% of the total, revenue that is earned. That is, but I don't remember the exact figure.
Yeah, so as you rightly said, Mr. Mohsin, it's a strategic decision taken by the management. So it's very important and very pertinent that the management is focused on the professional development of their own people. So based on that, definitely they would allocate every year. Okay, do we have any other question? Dr. Sood, do we have any other question here or on YouTube?
No, I don't see any more.
Okay, since we have another 5-6 minutes, please feel free. You can unmute, even if you don't want to type it in the chat box. You can take up your questions. Okay, one thing that I forgot to mention about the certification process. So the organizations who are interested in going for the ISO 21001 certificate, there is a process that you will have to adopt. Once you have implemented the standard and you have conducted your internal audits and your reviews, and you are prepared for the audits, the third-party audits, you can apply to us. And we will be conducting the audit in 2 stages. We call it stage 1 and stage 2, where stage 1 is a quick check of your documentation and your readiness for stage 2. Stage 2 is the check of the implementation, where we look into all the processes and their implementation. and of course your continual improvement process also. Once you are certified by us, your certificate is valid for 3 years. And every year you have to get a surveillance audit done. So we will be coming for a quick check to see whether whatever you had showcased in the year 1, you continue to maintain the same level of quality in your systems. So it's a continuous process, a process of continual improvement, and whatever gaps are identified during the internal audits as well as the external audits, they define the path of your improvement. So you can learn from your own mistakes and go on making new mistakes every time. And the audit can be used as a tool to continuously go on improving your system.
Aarti ma'am, there's a question on YouTube where someone wants to know what timeline does one look for when they go in for the certification?
All right. So,
and also the expense involved.
Okay, so I can definitely guide you on the timelines. So the timelines would depend on the extent of the implementation. If today you feel that you have a robust system in place and you're able to align your systems with the requirements of the standard, I think you can immediately even apply for a certification. So the level of these systems and the effectiveness in your systems and the kind of measurements that are happening already, and how do you control and monitor your system regularly, I think it would depend on that. So if any organization has to start fresh, has no clue about the standards, you can conduct a gap analysis, conduct a pre-assessment, know where you are, define your own target timelines, and work towards it. So I have seen organizations who have been able to implement the system within just 3 or 4 months' time. I have also seen organizations who have taken more than 1 or 2 years to do it. So it completely depends on your own commitment and also the competence of your team. Everybody has to have a very positive approach and a focus towards the implementation of the standard. So have a team who can work on it, train them. I think their capacity building is very important. Once they are confident to take it forward, you're ready.
Ma'am, there is one more question from Dr. Anusha from the viewers of YouTube. She wants to understand, you mentioned about the principles of ISO 21001. So it covers the quality management, it covers the health and safety, it covers the security management as well. Does it cover the environment management system as well?
Yes, Anusha. If I get your name right, Aftab, that's Anusha.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, Anusha, the standard, this is the first standard, I would say, this is the first standard that is not only talking about quality, it's talking about quality, it's talking about environment, health and safety, information security, complaint handling. You know, there's an ISO standard on complaint handling. It's talking about ethical practices. So you go to anti-bribery management system. It is covering so many things, and also the social responsibility and sustainability. So Anusha, I don't think this standard has left anything. And as we all know, education is the backbone for any country. So whether we are teaching in a school or a college or a university or in a training institution, we have to give our best, because we are ultimately creating a workforce who is going to lead the nation. So this is one standard which has been developed with a complete holistic approach. I hope I've answered you, Anusha. Any other question? Would someone like to share something? If anybody has been implementing the standard already, I'm aware some of you are doing it. So would somebody like to share the experiences? Ms. Bajpai, I don't know whether you'll be able to share or not. Oh, we have Mr. Hussain also from Middle East. Mr. Hussain, would you like to share any experience? You have undergone the internal auditor course also. So how do you see it can benefit the L&D sector? Mr. Naushad is there. I see so many known faces who have done a lot of work, especially on the standard. Yeah, Mr. Naushad, would you like to share? You need to unmute.
So you need to unmute.
First of all, thanks for giving this opportunity. Aarti, about my experience, I was MR for at least 4 groups of industries, and I was implementing, I'm the MR of the QMS for the organizations, where I used to have a very important part of training evaluation for the industries. The 4 industries is being served by a training department within our group. And this one we used to certify within the scope of the QMS itself. So when I was hearing about this particular certification for training and effectiveness and evaluation, first I was so much excited. The second point is when I was looking into the implementation of the training and effectiveness, first of all, I was liking one of the questions by a participant is about the budget. See, we were given at least $500,000 of Saudi Riyal for training and effectiveness only for the organizations. We used to, using the QMS model, we used to allocate budget. Within the scope of the budget, what we do is we evaluate the continual improvements for each process and what is their proficiency levels of our trainers, whether we need it in-house and whether we have to outsource it. First of all, we have internal assessment. We used to rank our people internally. We give training fees for the people.
Naushad, I'm sorry for interrupting, but in the interest of time, let's come straight to one point. So what is the difference that you see implementing ISO 21001 as compared to ISO 20001?
I believe when we going with 21001, we'll be focused more on how the trainer himself is going to be evaluated more effectively. That's one of the things I see from this point of view. Second thing, otherwise it's generally covered in the QMS 901, but 2100 is going to be very focused in particularly about the effectiveness and the proficiency of the trainer and the business point of view, how it's going to be connected. It is already going to be the business. So overall, I see this will have a very great value addition for any group of organizations, which is putting the learning and development as a critical strategy for improvement.
Certain.
For a learning organization, this is going to be a great opportunity because we are many certifications possible, but effectiveness for the learning for the improvement of the organization has never been certified so far in any ISO certification. This is the only thing which is going to be available right now. And we have always been enjoying the benefits of QMS 9001, which is very general. In my 10 to 12 years of MR experience, I found it is very useful, but it is not going to be as effective as 21001. I'm sure 21001 will make a great effort.
Thank you. Thank you. Your inputs will really help so many people out here. I also see Mr. C.K. Tiwari. If Tiwari sir, would you like to share anything about your experience?
Good afternoon and good evening, rather, in fact, everybody. In fact, I am from Indian Oil and we are in the process of obtaining 21001. So we have just begun the journey, and the most attractive part of the system which appeals to me is that evaluation of the impact. Many things are common with 9001, but then evaluation of the impact of training is a very tedious process.
Yes.
All said and done, we normally fail.
Yes.
But then at IOCL, we have developed one or two models, and we are trying implementing it. So unless we really implement, we would not like to go beyond. We are looking for implementation, but with the assessment of training impact.
Wonderful.
It's a good model which we have developed, and we have just launched. It's in the trial system, and I'm sure we will definitely sail through it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tiwari sir. And may I please know, IIPM is taking care of the training needs of how many people across the country?
We have normally it's in thousands, about 8,000 employees we are supposed to train. But then it doesn't happen that every year we have to train so much.
Correct.
So once we divide it to annual, probably 2,500 odd employees need to step into the institute almost every day, every year.
Right.
Courtesy Corona, this year we have no footfall at the moment. But then till then,
we've been doing a lot of virtual trainings.
Yes, virtually we are doing.
Yeah. All right. So training is a training, whether done physically or virtually.
Yes.
Right, sir. Thank you
so
much.
We'll come out with the impact assessment tool.
Wonderful. Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else? Otherwise, we'll close. Would someone else? One last person. Would you like to share? Mr. Mohsen, would you like to share your experience of implementing the standard?
Yes, I would like to share. See, the standard, this is the first standard that has addressed all of the learning and development requirements, actually, when we implemented it. We, as you know, we had implemented 9,000. Those organizations who has already implemented 9,000 will get some benefit out of it as from the implementation perspective. Others, the basic thing that many of you have already addressed it is the return on investment. See, the main issue of the organization is the amount that is being spent on the training. So what will be the return on investment? Now, this is the standard that gives the platform to make clarify this particular requirement.
Right. Thank you so much. And I think this is a very important point. Thinking from any management's perspective, who's spending in money, time, effort, everything into training its own employees, what is the result that you'll get? Is it going to increase your business? Is it going to help your employees in their professional growth? Is it going to change the mindset of your people? So once you are sure that by implementing a standard, you can get all of that, I think this gives a boost to the management. All right, so with that, we come to the end of today's webinar, and we look forward to many such interactions with most of you. I see most of you are the experts in L&D, and we look forward to have you all on our panel for various discussions which can benefit the entire L&D community. And thank you very much for joining us. Thank you. Reach out to us in case you need any clarification on the standard.
Thank you, Aarti ma'am, for a wonderful session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sood, for all your support. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Have a wonderful time. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So we are closing the session.